Hi, Sagittarius. Welcome to Pandora Astrology's monthly horoscope for November 2019. For you this month, there's going to be some stuff that's going to be buried in your 12th house. And so, yeah, it could be a little anxiety provoking in the beginning of the month, but later on, after your birthday, some real sweetness starts to occur. Julia, what are your thoughts on Venus and Mars for Sagittarius this month?
Well, Sagittarius, on the very 1st of November, Venus is going to be entering your sign of Sagittarius, which is,
Woot!
yeah, and it correlates with your natal first house.
Hmm.
And the first house is the house of self. So you're going to be really embodying Venus energy quite strongly.
Mhm.
Now, what does that mean? Venus is a planet of romance, relationships, also beauty. So that is a really excellent time for any type of beautifying that you want to do. If you want to get a new haircut, if you want to buy some clothes to make you look good, that's a really great time for it. And you might be well received by other people too during that time because everyone loves Venus energy. And then Venus is going to be entering Capricorn on November 25th, which will go into your natal second house. And that is the house of possessions. It's the house of money. It's that paycheck that you go out and work so hard to get. And when Venus goes into this house, it's actually a nice time for spending money, especially on things that are luxury items, because that's what Venus ruled, things that give you pleasure. If you want to buy some paintings for the house or invest in art, that could be a really good time for it. And then the next planet I want to talk about, Mars. And Mars is the planet of action, passion. Wherever we have it in our chart is where we're finding drive, where there's a hub of activity in our lives. So Mars is going to be already in Libra when the month begins, and that correlates with your 11th house. That is the house of groups of all kinds. So if you're a part of any professional associations, if you go to any recovery groups, if you get together with a huge gang of girlfriends or guy friends at any part of the month, you game and you kind of network with lots of people while you do role playing. There's going to be just a lot of activity in that arena. And Mars can also bring a spirit of competitiveness, also some conflict too. So you might be a little extra competitive with your friends or any of the groups that you're part of, or you might run into a few arguments here and there. So, try to keep it kosher. And then Mars is going to be entering entering the sign of Scorpio on November 18th. So that means it's going into your 12th house, what Jamie was talking about earlier in this video. So the 12th house is definitely a very, very hidden, very, very private house. And the traditional people and modern people also associate it with places of seclusion. And Mars being such an active planet that usually likes to be out in the open, it's going to be a lot more reserved. So if you have to do any work on your own, you might prefer to just kind of do it behind closed doors than being a team player that month. Also, Mars can show us how we express our anger. So you also might be a little bit more inclined towards passive aggressiveness than just kind of being upfront and direct about what's bothering you. And what else is going on this month, Jamie?
All of that is such a good caution, and it's also a really great segue to what I have to say about Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde is in Scorpio this month, and it's not going to be easy for anyone, but I think, Sagittarius, it might be particularly difficult for you. Scorpio is the sign right before your sign, and I think of it as Scorpio as representing a journey through the darkness, what might be called a long dark night of the soul. It's about death and rebirth. It's about purging. And you, Sagittarius, the sign that comes after Scorpio, are like the light at the end of the tunnel, the happiness and the joy that comes after the catharsis, the dawn after the long dark night. And from Sagittarius's point of view, why would you ever want to go back into that darkness? And so that makes times like this Mercury retrograde in Scorpio kind of tough, because when Mercury is retrograde, we often have to go back and fix old communications that were not done right in the first place. So do not sign any contracts this month. Absolutely. That's just kind of a given during Mercury retrograde in general. But what I'm saying is that, because things have a tendency to go awry, office machinery breaks down, parts of the internet drop, messages get misconstrued or mislaid. Um, it can be very charged up with emotion, especially when these things happen in Scorpio. And so, to just put it in terms of the ups and downs, the downside of it is this month, you Sagittarians of the world are likely to be made to go back and look at something that you thought was resolved, re-resolve a communication that you thought you got right in the first place. It's probably going to take you by surprise. I'm really sorry. It's probably going to come from left field. And you may have to face, that you maybe made a blunder, or that you left somebody feeling not thought about, not cared about, disregarded, rolled over, perhaps, bowled over. Um, but I think that there is a very big upside to this too, and it has to do with that Mars, Julia, that you were talking about there in the 12th house, because Mars is very comfortable and happy in Scorpio, and so Mercury meets the Sun on the 11th. There's the full moon on the 12th, and then later on in the month, as Mars enters Scorpio, basically these are all opportunities for a fast, intense, cathartic release. So what I'm saying to you, Sagittarius, is we know you like going up, you don't like going down. This month, if you're willing to go down into those dark, scary places and face what you find there, you could bounce back really quickly, like a balloon pushed underwater and like scooting upwards. And you could bounce back even quicker the more willing you are to go down. So let me go back over those last few details a little bit more, because I just skimmed through them. So when Mars is in Scorpio, that will help the effort. And back on the 11th, Mercury and the Sun meet up in a conjunction, and I call that Lesser Epiphany Day. Mercury's traveling backward, the Sun is traveling forward. They meet up in a burst of insight or aha. And that can be the time when you get that phone call from that old girlfriend or boyfriend who just really wants to get closure with you. Or that coworker comes up to you and says, when you said that to me the other day, it really bugged me, and I've been simmering in it ever since. And could you hear me about that? And so that may be the day when the dam bursts, and you can be ready for that with an open heart and the generosity that is your signature. The next day is the 12th, which is the full moon. Here's that moon in Taurus right over here in the 6th house. Here's the Sun and Mercury in Scorpio in the 12th house, forming that opposition of a full moon that we know so well. And full moons do have a tendency to be full of emotion, as if this Mercury retrograde in Scorpio wasn't full enough of emotion. But I think that this moon in Taurus, where the moon loves to be, in your 6th house of work, can provide an anchor in all the storms that may come up. So you may find that there's somebody at your workplace that can ground you and be a lifeline for you as you cope with these emotional communications that are swirling all around, coming up from the unconscious. Or it may be that you are that rock that other people can cling to. And so much the better if that's the case. Later in the month is the moon that you've been waiting for, which is the new moon in Scorpio. And how nice it's going to feel when the moon and the sun meet. I said in Scorpio and I meant Sagittarius. The new moon meets the Sun in Sagittarius right there in your 1st house, right in time for your birthday. What could be better? The mood is light, it's fun, it's humorous, it's definitely the dawn after the dark. And it's really a great time to just celebrate. And celebrate one of the things that you love the best, which is the variety of thoughts and ideas and philosophies and cultures and the diversity of peoples that we have on this earth. The sheer melting pot that we are. This is a moon that's organized around a theme of tolerance, which is something that you, Sagittarius, know a lot about. So it puts you front and center, and it's a great way to begin your year. Planting seeds of generous, open hearted tolerance. That's really what I recommend. So that's happening on the 26th. We'll be feeling it from the 25th to the 27th. And it's your birthday month, Sagittarius. It's really time for a solar return birthday reading. It's best to get it before your birthday if you can. I'm kind of hard to schedule with, but Julia might be available to see you before your birthday, and that would be a great way to get a jump on your year before it begins. But even if you have to come and schedule after your birthday, it's still worth doing, because knowing what's coming in the year can really put you in the driver's seat, and we'd love to do that for you. Well, I think that's all we have for you this month, Sagittarius. I hope you enjoyed it. You can always find our horoscopes on pandoraastrology.com/horoscope, or in our November horoscopes playlist on our YouTube channel, Pandora Astrology. And all the little pieces that were mentioned here about Mercury retrograde or about the lunations will also show up in the November news playlist on our YouTube channel. And we'll see you next month and all around the cosmos. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.